Hello and welcome to Game Warp. I'm Elwood Big Daddy Jones, and I'm joined as always by our very own little sister Kim Lowe.
Hey, I like the intro. I like the intro.
Because we are, throwing a little Bioshock in there because we are obviously talking about Rapture. Because today, it's our featured game. We're talking about Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. See, it all comes together. Today we're obviously talking about our featured game for February, which is the indie title Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, developed by the Chinese Room and released through SCE Santa Monica Studios. And obviously we've got the footage on our YouTube page. If you've obviously watching it through YouTube, you can obviously find that in our other video section. If you are obviously listening to this through either Podomatic or iTunes, make sure you hit that subscribe button or leave us some comments in the feedback form. But if you want to see the visual version of this podcast, then please do check us out on YouTube. Videos again also available through our Facebook page as well. So make sure you like and hit those subscribe buttons. We do appreciate it. Today the focus is Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. This is a game which came out last year. It's been released on both Steam as well as PlayStation 4. Sadly, no release for the Xbox One, which is always a bit confusing, but I guess it's more the advantage for the PlayStation players, really. This game is seen as being very much a spiritual successor to Dear Esther, which was also from the Chinese Room, who have obviously developed this game. And it's falling under the heading of being a walking simulator, a title that's obviously been used for the likes of Firewatch and has really become one of those game genres which have sort of come into vogue as of last year, and certainly going into this year we're seeing more titles which are falling under this heading. Those not familiar with Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, basically it's set in this small English town and all the inhabitants have mysteriously disappeared, and you as the unnamed player have to go through this town and you can interact with these strange floating lights that are scattered throughout the world, as well as radios, and you sort of piece together what's actually happened in this town and where everybody's gone. And it's a fun little story. But Kim, opening thoughts on this one. This is one that you're obviously excited about going into. What was it about Everybody's Gone to the Rapture that sort of drew your attention to it?
Well, Everybody's Gone to the Rapture is kind of those significant games that started this whole walking simulator. And if we were to talk about walking simulators, which we have a really good discussion with the East Shade Studios for when we interviewed them and talked to their developer, walking simulators is exactly what this is because there really isn't really anything else you do. You follow a twirling light that guides you throughout the town, and you can see the map that you're going frequently. You know where you are, and as it goes, you weave through these stories of different characters, which slowly piece together the story of what Everybody's Gone to the Rapture is. The idea that you're walking in this town, which is just destroyed pretty much. There isn't really anything in it, and the atmosphere of everything is very charming.
The interesting aspect of this, because obviously when we look at these sort of post-apocalyptic games, these sort of sci-fi games, we normally expect to be somewhere based in America or, as we said, like a post-apocalyptic wasteland, but this isn't the case here. This is 1980s Shropshire in England. So essentially we're getting The Archers with a sci-fi twist. For those obviously outside of the UK, The Archers is a radio play that we have over here, which is set in rural England and basically follows like the small scandals within this village and, rural comings and goings like cow birthings and something that the older generation do like to listen to, such as my dad. So it's kind of bizarre coming to this as an English player, obviously having the reference point for The Archers and certainly a lot of the 1980s references. So we have references to obviously like the Falklands War when the Argentinians are mentioned throughout the game as well. So it's kind of unusual, and at the same time this is a game which is drawing a lot of inspiration from like 1960s 1970s British science fiction. So we've got like references to like John Wyndham's Day of the Triffids and John Christopher's Death of Grass and A Wrinkle in the Skin, and throughout the game you see these references sort of pop up, and it's kind of refreshing change of pace to have a game with this sort of setting, let alone the fact we're out in the real countryside. And it's safe to say this game looks absolutely stunning.
Yeah, other than it being stunning, I mean, just think about the score that it has behind it. Everywhere that you go has a different piece of music. There's unique piano pieces, and there's it really helps build the mood of what this game is trying to aim for. Especially because as you go through sequences where you're walking through the town, and sometimes and then in between the sequence, you're going to like when you've unlocked the story, like a chapter of one person, which is how the chapters are done, is 6 chapters of 6 characters that are in these towns. And obviously there's a lot of overlap because the main characters are the last two stories that we go through. So as we go through these towns, we eventually go to the ultimate ending of what happens, like of that character. Like it's also the idea that they've crafted a really nice story for everyone. Like nice in the sense where it's detailed, and we get a glimpse into the lives of the people living in that area, and it feels very authentic. I don't know if you felt the same way, but I felt like as they reached the end, they found something that they were struggling to overcome, and it was kind of an individual story that wasn't just about the post-apocalyptic, but it was using the post-apocalyptic thing, which was, oh well, what is happening is the big question, but it dials down to every single character and how they react to the situation, and what really it's kind of these moments that kind of like has the impact of like making them a little bit more like a more emotional story.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just going to warn in advance, we are going to be going into spoilers as part of this review, and I think at this point we've really given as good an outline without going too deep into this. So certainly if this has sort of triggered your interest, and certainly if the visuals that we're showing you are obviously are catching your interest there, then we highly recommend you go and check this out, and then come back and obviously we'll listen to us, as we're now obviously going to go a bit deeper into the actual storyline. Coming from the countryside myself, there's a real sense of familiarity with the story that we have here. One of the main stories we have here, we obviously have the two dots here. We got Stephen and Catherine, who are working up at the observatory. Yeah, Catherine, or she goes by Kate as well. Okay. Kate's not only an African American, but she, as I said, she's an American as well. So coming into this small village, they're all very wary of her. And this is a real sort of mentality that I certainly encountered growing up, coming from small towns, where because they don't have this sort of ethnic diversity, and they're certainly not particularly keen on outsiders, that they would greet someone like Kate with suspicion. And we do see this throughout. There's this constant running storyline with certain villagers who regard Kate as they're very wary about her and they don't trust her. Stephen obviously grew up in this village, and he's seen as this kind of returning hero, and at the same time there's a lot of baggage that he left behind when he left the village and he's now having to re-encounter. There's a relationship that he picks up as we find out he's been carrying on an affair, and really as the game goes on we get all these little details and it all sort of comes together. Certain stories will end at the end of a chapter, others you will have to go through to the end of the game for them to reach their conclusion. And where the game starts is very much different from where it ends. It starts off as sort of one tone and ends in a very different place, I've found.
When you first start, everything feels really simple. Everything is just really I guess it's also the characters. As we get a little closer to the character that we're really focusing on, it just really changes. I don't know how to say it better. Maybe you can explain it better.
I mean, yeah, we start off with this quirky sort of rural life, and it's sort of like, gotta go and get my ladder to get into the observatory, and it's all like these quaint little problems, and you think, this is going to be a gentle game. We've seen the map, and the route you take is very much on rails. You can vary off to like the sides in places, and you can explore things, but the path you're going to take is very much on rails. And I will say that in advance, it gives this idea that you've got this huge world to explore, but you are very much going where the game wants you to go. It just gives you this illusion of this open world, and it's because of these locked doors that you will constantly encounter. It will guide you constantly forward, as well as the lights that you follow. They guide you, and they're kind of like will-o'-the-wisps. These glowing balls of light that you follow, and at times they will trigger memories, so you see the outlines of people as they're reenacting certain scenes, and it's through those moments we actually find out. And we obviously start, as we said, we start with this quaint little rural drama and people having their little village problems, and next thing we know, we've got this strange outbreak. People are disappearing and hemorrhaging.
They're coughing up blood and all that sort of stuff. Yeah,
we've got like this whole plague that's breaking out, and we follow the small town doctor, and he's like basically trying to make sense of this all. And you've got this sense of rising panic as it's being listed as being Spanish influenza. And all the while, the village is being quarantined. You hear them like they're cutting off the telephone lines, they're blocking roads, and as you're going on, you don't know why any of this is happening, and you obviously do get answers, but it's this sort of real sense of growing paranoia, and you certainly, as you encounter different characters, sort of sides of the story, it really sort of adds to that. I mean, the actual plague plotline, I mean, how did you find that, and how that particularly grew?
Yeah, because the thing is that you have the plague, and then you're getting the idea as you walk further, and the story kind of thickens. Even in like just, I think it's really the first chapter near the end, we start getting like it's not so gentle anymore. It's not really a rural. It is a rural thing, but it's not. It's like a small town outbreak. We don't know that it's quarantined yet. We only know that with the first chapter, it's really like on the surface. It's really how they are dealing with it as personally, because our first chapter is about Father Jeremy, and he's pretty much the local. I don't know. Would you say a pastor, priest? I don't know how.
This is the thing. I believe it's a priest. I think there's a difference between the two, and people do get touchy about it. But yeah, we'll say he's a priest.
Yeah, something like that. Like just, the religious leader in there, He runs the church. He's the figure that people trust, and, he's trying to figure out the situation, and he's trying to help everybody. As the end of the story happens, it's actually one of those big moments, that really throws you into kind of like, you already know that as the story is entering into a very emotional territory. The plague itself is a little creepy because we don't know what it is. On top of that, as we're walking around, we're turning on these radios, which we hear Kate talking, and she's guiding us into this journey of like what she's seeing. And she's talking about, the light, and then Steven is on the phone where, he's emitting messages through the phone, and the phone he's talking about, the phone is like, they're moving through the phone and everything, and you're just like, I don't know what's going on. Like, is it the light that's causing the influenza, or is it something like they construct this really suspenseful situation, which really not only makes you want to learn about everyone's story, but you really like want to keep going and figure out the plague. Like, what is the real deal about this? Yeah,
I think certainly, and as you go through the areas, you see the aftermath of this. You're not encountering people. You see like the aftermath. So you go in the hospital, the doctor's waiting room, and there's like bloody tissues everywhere.
Yeah.
There's like dead birds that are just lying on the ground, and you constantly have this feeling that you're going to encounter someone somewhere. But there's this eerie isolation to, as you go into empty houses, all you're seeing constantly is just the aftermath of what's happened. Yeah, as you were saying, obviously we're getting bits and pieces, so we obviously hear what Kate and Stephen are obviously saying through their messages. As we get further, we obviously get the sort of conspiracy and paranoia angle through like Frank, who's the CB enthusiast. So we're here from like the civilian sort of perspective of what's happening, and there's a section early on where we encounter like a crashed train, and there's actually a memory sequence there which shows that this train's been derailed, and this scene of like mass panic there. So it's sort of fascinating, obviously, that we think, oh, it's gone from raw drama, we're into a virus drama. And then as you sort of get comfortable with it, we suddenly get these other elements put into it, such as we find out Stephen's been having an affair with someone in the village. And then we obviously find out that, oh, wait a minute, this is actually, these lights are a type of alien life form, and that Kate and Stephen are trying to communicate with it. They're trying to understand it, and at the same time, it seems to be they've unleashed this presence on the valley which could threaten to infect the whole world. They don't understand it, and they're trying to make sense of it. And they're facing this idea that the only way to ultimately save the rest of the world from being affected is to kill everyone in this valley. So we're building up to this, the valley being gassed, and there's a number of stories which end with the planes flying overhead, and it's the first time we encounter, I believe it's with Mary and her story, and
there was this Frank, yeah, Frank.
I think it's one of the stories, and you hear her, and she's like this real cantankerous old bat throughout it, but when her story ends, it's so poignantly sad how her last moments are, and then we just end the chapter and we go into another chapter, and it knows when to end a story, when to hit us with these poignant moments, and it's only sort of backed up by this wonderful score we have.
Yeah, for sure, especially because I also think that maybe one of the most beautiful scenes is the moment that your story ends, and in order for you to transition into the next one, they skillfully put you in this place which is guided by little specks of light on a path, and you just walk through in pitch black. And if you look into the sky, it is literally looks like you're looking into a galaxy full of just like little specks and lights, and it's colorful, and you just keep going down the path, and it is, and the music they use during this time is, I mean, the best way to say it's a very peaceful moment, but it's also a little haunting, I find, and that's how they build up the story gradually, right? I mean, the first time that we actually see the jets flying through and dropping the bombs or whatever was such a traumatic situation. Like, that was the story that touched me the most. I think it was for Frank's ending, when he was really like talking about, you know, him and Mary, like his wife Mary, that he had lost because of this influenza and whatnot. And it was a very, like, I don't know if there was any moments like that hit you harder than other ones.
I think it was Wendy's supposed demise, and she's sort of like, she has this moment where she seems to lose all sense of reality, and she sees it as her son coming home, and it was just the performance that's given for her character, because as I said, she's just a cantankerous old batch. I mean, she's mean and borderline racist to Kate for the most part, and there's all these. But
she's being a protective mom, right? So I can understand. I can get where she's going, but no one seems to hate her. That's the thing. It's like Wendy seems like that. You know, that little prattling old lady who walks around town and she'll gossip with everybody, but she'll help everybody also. And I don't know.
Yeah, she seems like, I think because of she's so stuck in her ways that she won't ever admit she's going to be wrong, and it's like this. It's almost like a realization that she wishes that she had apologized or done something different. It's like the only time we see her show any signs of regret or sadness is in these final moments. And it just really points, and it's really the score that comes to this. And I mean, this is a very JRPG score that Jessica Carey has composed here. Obviously, Jessica Carey is probably a familiar name to those who obviously did Dear Esther. Here again, it's a very poignant score, and we have a very choral sort of driven score as well as orchestral moments throughout, and there seems to be almost a reworking of Are You Going to Scarborough Fair that seems to be running throughout the game, even though it's hard to make out what the words are, but certainly the opening words to it do seem to give the impression that they've reworked Are You Going to Scarborough Fair, which works perfectly within the setting of this game. It perfectly matches the tone, and they know how to frame these moments with the music. It's not like you have music going throughout and that it's creating this whole sense of mood and atmosphere. The music is only really sort of present as and when they want to create these moments, when they want to emphasize something. So it's used very sparsely but very keenly throughout the game, and it's certainly one of my favorite elements of this game is just the music. When it kicks in, it's just really envelops you and gives you a sense that you're playing something quite special.
Yeah, for sure. I love the music was definitely one of my favorite parts. But I think one of the things that really pushes the story also is the fact that they do have side characters. I myself found it a little hard sometimes to capture the side characters a lot, because there were quite a few of them, but their stories always felt a little incomplete because you just kind of figured they probably just died because everybody did. But I mean, like, but then you have these moments where, it's parents trying to locate their daughter and deciding whether it's important or not to go get her. And you have these little things where I guess it's a little bit more of a morals and ethics kind of story in a way, where it kind of like, you have a dad running in and he's like, no, we have to go. It's like, screw the daughter. Let's just go, let's just leave a tape. Don't even leave a tape. It's wasting time. We have to leave,
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And I think, again, this is a very British sci-fi way of approaching this. I mean, you could, as we mentioned already, I mean, this is very like Day of the Trivia. It's like The Death of Grass. This is a very British approach to this sort of situation that we're hearing here. And anyone who's obviously familiar with like British sci-fi will be able to recognize a lot of the themes and ideas, and certainly the construction we see throughout here. At the same time, I mean, this should be noted, this isn't an action game. You aren't going to be fighting aliens. You are really just basically being guided for a story. And this in where lies one of my main issues with the game, is that essentially it misses the point of the word game. This isn't really a game. This is more of an interactive story that you're inhabiting.
But I think this is where we talk about a little further about what defines a walking simulator. When you do a walking simulator, it is very focused on building the story. It's walking from one location to the next and learning something new and doing something like that. If it wasn't a walking simulator, it'd be a puzzle game. You'd be doing some sort of puzzle genre, or you'd be something like that. You'd be, or it'd be an action RPG, or it'd be something like this. There are calmer games than these things that work, but I think the idea of walking simulator is that it is really just letting a story unfold, and you're walking from one location to the next and really absorbing the environment that was built for them. But obviously, when people talk about games, they want to be interactive.
Yeah, I think it was the sense of that I wasn't really involved in this game. I'm just controlling the camera. That's all I'm doing. It's a similar experience to, like, say you decide one day you're going to eat like a whole carrot cake. Just like, that's all you're going to do. You're going to have this whole cake to yourself. And while it's enjoyable and you think, oh, this is fantastic and great, you get to the point where you feel like, I'm missing something. I want something more substantial here than just cake. Yes, it looked very good. I'm enjoying the experience, but at the end, I'm just left feeling kind of hollow. That I was not involved in this at all, and that the fact that this game would have happened had I gone out of the room and come back in again, that someone essentially could have been playing this game for me, and I would have had the same experience. There just felt very little involvement in the story. Yes, it's very nice that it builds up as it goes along. I'm meeting new characters, I'm getting new clues and all the rest of this, but I'm not picking up anything. I'm not solving any puzzles. The only thing that I'm doing in terms of involvement here is finding radios to provide more clues to myself. So I'm just essentially collecting story. That's all. That's my only involvement here. And I think there's a middle section where we're at the real crappy holiday park, which is actually kind of a fair representation of some of these holiday parks I used to go to, that I felt kind of a bit bored. I was like, okay, I'm just wandering around now and nothing's really happening. I've got this forbidden love angle that's going on here between two of these characters, but I was like, I just can't be bothered with this. I want to get back onto this whole plague outline, these aliens. I want to find out some conspiracy thing. And thankfully, from when we get past that moment, it's really the shit hits the fan really from that moment on, because everything's going downhill. Steven's essentially lost his mind and is caught stealing supplies by certain characters, and we're building up to really catching up with Steven's sort of final moments as we obviously enter in the bunker. And probably one of my favorite moments of the game, when we enter this bunker and we see that he's just lost his mind completely. He's writing all this symbols on the wall and paint, and like we finally encounter like this memory of Steven, and his final moments are just so poignant, and it's a beautiful scene that we see, and the fact it's all done in silhouette only sort of adds to this moment. That it sort of drew me back in the game. It was like, yes, I'm now back in the game. I can see this through to the end. I want to see how this ends. But for that middle section, it was kind of like, I don't know why I'm playing.
I get what you mean, because that middle section was for Lizzie, which was very funny because in a certain way, we had like maybe 3 scenes with Lizzie, and then all the other ones was about Frank and I don't know how to say his name. How do you say R-H-Y-S? Rice?
Race.
Race. Yeah, so you have that character, and then, you know, you have like his little bit that you were talking about with Rachel, and Rachel's this other girl, which I always thought was super young, but apparently she's young, but not illegal, I guess. But yeah, and then, you know, it sidetracks to the summer camp, which is also a brilliant scene. I mean, like the summer camp itself was not brilliant, but the scene in the hall was very nice as they ended it there.
Yeah.
I don't think I got bored. I just felt I think it's the idea that some of the side characters don't matter too much, that you don't really want to know, because the overlying issue is that you really want to know what the light is.
Yeah.
And why it's there and how it works, and will we eventually get a reveal, you know? Because I think the idea is that as you're walking through the town and you're following this light, I had this feeling that, you know, I'm following this light and I don't really know if this light is sinister or not, but I'm following it to uncover. And I get what you mean by the fact that, you know, you're really just, it really looks like you're looking into someone's life. You're walking down this path, but you're just kind of like the means to an end to figure it out. If they had done it in a way that would have been interactive, would be in maybe like an investigative thing where you picked up, like you went there, you turn on the radio, you heard Kate's dialogue, you picked up the phone, you had Steven's thing, which was exactly what they did. But the only difference was that you'd actually be holding these pieces of evidence and piecing them together in the end. And maybe that would have been a little bit more memorable in the sense.
I think so. I think I wanted, if I had an experience like Myst, for example, where you're collecting clues as you go around, you're solving puzzles, you're having some sort of interaction. I mean, the game seems to, it's got this village that you're going around, and it felt that some of these stories that they basically put in because they needed to fill in the time between you getting from one location to the other, and the only way that they felt that they could do it was by putting in this perhaps unneeded story, just so you weren't just wandering around the country just essentially talking to yourself. It just feels that, I mean, we have this idea of the village that you can go anywhere, you can explore anywhere, but half the houses are locked up. The only houses you can go into are the ones they want you to go into.
Because I'm just going to cut you off here, is that really brings into the point of the fact that is following, like, because the fact was that in the chapter 1, when we were doing the Father Jeremy, I actually didn't know. I saw the light. I had a good idea. If you follow the light, that was really where you were going. But I decided always to go astray and go other places. And when I was talking this with my husband, who was playing it at the same time, but not together, he was telling me, he was like, well, the quickest way to play this game in the sequence is if you follow the light, and the stories will unlock as you follow the light. Yeah. And obviously, you are forced to do that, because in the end, if I think back to, say, I did the stream of the first hour, and when I look back at the stream, I realized that, you know, although I was walking in the other direction, most of the time the memories triggered would be where the light is. So So even if I wanted to go somewhere else, and this was crafted as, I think I read somewhere that this is considered an open world game. But it is not open world to me because it has such a linear storyline to it.
Yeah, you can't just go into any house. And the way they cover for that is the fact that this village has been evacuated, so people have locked up the houses before they got out of town. So there are only there are houses you can go into, but there's nothing to steal, there's nothing to root through. It's more just to provide more of an idea of either what the background for characters or what has been happening in the town. And obviously as you go through, things get a little more crazy until we obviously get to the observatory where it ends. And we get like this kind of reveal. It's kind of a bit vague what's happened.
We'll talk about the ending in just a second before we wrap up the episode. But I actually think that because I guess your main thing is that you didn't really like the fact that it wasn't interactive. My main thing was not that. Maybe because I'm used to calmer games. I don't like fighting. I don't like that sort of thing. I'm not good at it either. So while I enjoy it time and time again when I kind of grasp the idea of how to play it well, I really think the main issue with this was the walking pace was so slow.
Oh, yeah.
That was like, when you're going through these long sequences of going through something, like, I love the idea that, when you're walking on different things, they had the detail of, like, when you're walking on grass, you have a crunchy grass sound, and then when you're walking through, stone and pavement, you have that clop, clop, clop sounds, But then when you're going from one location, then it is so tiring. Like, at a certain point, we game a lot. So when we're trying to do crunch time to get this out, and I'm trying to do this, I'm just like, when is the next place? When am I going to get there? Why is this so slow? You're the only person in the town anyways. I don't know. Is it because of being cautious that I think it's to build the atmosphere as you're walking slower and you see these musical scores build when you're heading towards the next scene. It really builds up your emotion and your anticipation for what's to come.
Yeah.
And I get what they're trying to do, but I mean, I would have appreciated it if it just even hastened just a little bit, because at some points it really drags. And that's where I felt the story was boring, was because as you're going from one location to the next, as much as your environment is gorgeous and musical score when it starts building is nice, and you can look at the destruction that has been caused, and sometimes you'll hit these scenes. I wonder if you'll hit scenes that aren't really scripted, unless you go off the beaten path. I wonder that sometimes, but I'm not sure. Just little side things. I wonder.
I think it's very controlled where these moments are, because the light obviously, because it triggers this sort of magpie mentality within you. It's sort of like, ooh, shiny thing, must go over there. There's very little to inspire you to go away from the path it takes you on. And I've heard people say that some of these lights are representing the souls of these characters. So
they are actually, because if you think about it, there is one character which is special, because her light was the one that really triggered me to think about, really wonder why it was like that. Because it was for Lizzie. Okay. And I don't know if you noticed it, but with her reveal at the end, you kind of understand why her light is different from everybody else's.
I think Liz's ending at the train station, that was another harsh moment. It was sort of like, it is such a British way of doing science fiction, really. Everything's going to end pretty bleak. And that's where we like our sci-fi. We like to end on a bleak moment. I mean, you can look at any number of British sci-fi, such as, like, for example, Terry Gilliam's Brazil. We have an ultra bleak ending, but if you watch the American cut, it has a super happy ending, because apparently they felt that the Americans can't handle a darker ending. So for some reason, we really do like things kind of dark here. And there's numerous examples throughout British science fiction where you have this sort of darker ending. Again, just if you look at things such as like A Wrinkle in the Skin, that ends kind of bleak. So it's nice the fact that they're not afraid to go to a dark place here with this game. Yes, it's very beautiful in that, but it's also got a very dark undertone to it, which I kind of appreciated. It kept me on my toes, the fact that it was constantly switching in tones. It wasn't sort of like one thing. It wasn't. It may start off as one idea, but by the end it's changed completely. And these tonal shifts throughout just really helped keep my interest throughout and made me want to see the story through to the end. I mean, I would say it's impossible to see how this is going to play out from those opening scenes. So even though I think towards the end you got an idea how certain characters are going to play out, others are kind of a bit more surprising. And just where they're willing to go with some of the plot elements here was really quite commendable for the Chinese Room to obviously to take the story in such a direction. So very commendable in that respect.
Yeah, for sure. I think that the story is definitely the strong point of this that really guides you. Like I said, it really, kind of really punches you in the heart a little, but in kind of like a bittersweet way, I guess. Yeah, obviously at a certain point, especially the last few stories, you pretty much know that you pretty much know at this point that the city is sentenced to death.
Yeah.
And the only thing now is that you have built a connection with the characters that you're seeing. And the only way you're going to know is, well, what's going to happen? How are they going to resolve whatever they're resolving? And that's one of the things, that's why I mentioned at the beginning, is that every single character, as they meet their end, really seems to let go and kind of face something that they've been kind of really pushing aside and ignoring. Like, Wendy eventually decides to face her son, which she's been having a hard time to deal with,
Yeah.
Or like Frank, who couldn't handle his wife passing, and he kind of betrayed himself, and he had a lot of anger towards himself, and he kind of let go of that. And those are just two examples, obviously, not so spoilerish in a certain way, but still very impactful scenes. So, I mean, just to kind of steer a little bit deeper into the spoiler and to kind of wrap this up, before we wrap it up, we do have to talk about, I think, is what is the liquid light? So we do know it's kind of an alien, I guess. Is it good? Is it bad? It's kind of abstract.
Well, obviously with the alien, it's the way that what I interpreted from it is that they basically encounter this life form, and by trying to communicate with it, they brought it to Earth. So, and it started off, it was able to go through radio waves and the phone lines, and then it managed to evolve and start being able to go from person to person. Now, within this sort of, it's only by the end, Kate sort of figured out a way to communicate with this life form, and that it's working on the print. She's formed like this mother-child bond with this relationship with this creature, and it comes very clear because everyone else in the village has their person they connect with, and obviously Kate's person is this creature. And by communicating, she basically realizes that by making everyone disappear, that it's bringing everyone together. This is what the alien is seeing us doing, and this is what is not meant to hurt people. It just wants everybody to be together, and that's what it's seeing as it's doing. And it's basically our misinterpretation of the message is that leads to the village being gassed, and this alien, all it wants to do is just for everybody to be together, and by doing that it turns everyone into essentially just one light source and brings it all into one. But as I say, it's very abstract, and it reminds me a lot of Inside and the fun we had trying to dissect it, what's going on inside. And I like that. I like the fact that it's not giving you the clear answer. I think it ends a little too suddenly. That would be my main criticism. But certainly it's been fun going on the boards and sharing ideas with people of what it all means. So
I think that the light itself, like you said, it's not bad. I think that I do believe the same thing, that it is really to bring everyone together.
Yeah.
I didn't think about it as a light source, but the final scene really does kind of emphasize on that. But I also think the light represented something for Kate, in the sense that, her in this town was, it seemed she had a lot of personal baggage. And the light her obsession with it was really the fact that connecting with this this life form
Yeah.
seemed to give her something, some sort of feeling that I don't know, maybe like she belonged somewhere, like she fit in, that they accepted her for who she was. Because in the town she was really, like the mother-in-law Wendy didn't care for her, didn't really accept her. She kept saying that, you should go back with your ex-fiance, and kind of pushed us. Yeah, and she can see her husband kind of distancing from her as well, and she's a smart woman. She realizes these things, and I guess a lot of the story focuses around Kate as being a final character as to what she's going through and what this life form means to her, but also in a much smaller scale, obviously, because the main scale is that the light itself is really there, and I guess it's a little unconscious of what it's causing, right?
Yeah, it's a very childlike entity. It has no way of realizing what it's doing. It's just interpreting things as it sees them. Mm-hmm. It has no understanding of human emotion and connection. It just takes things on the most basic connection and works from there, really. So
yeah. Is there anything else you want to add about Everybody's Gone to the Rapture?
No, I think we've really gone into it. I mean, I would still like to leave some things kind of out there for people to discover, in case there's obviously people out there who don't care about spoilers and want to obviously discover it themselves. So I think we can just basically go into ratings for this one.
Okay, so what would be your score?
I'm going to give this 4 out of 5. I feel that, yes, it's very beautiful. It's very emotionally engaging, but at the same time, this is a sort of very hollow experience, and this is not the sort of game that you're going to be rushing to replay once you've reached the end credits. You might return to it a couple of months down the line, but once it's ended, it's sort of, okay, well, I'm on to the next thing. I've had that experience. Not exactly in a rush to replay it, and the fact that you have to walk everywhere, there's no shortcuts. To it basically end up on the other side of the fence you start on. Sort of only adds to it, and we're only looking about 3-4 hours of gameplay, but yeah, I'd say 4 out of 5 is really where I'm going to go. It's certainly an interesting game. It's one I'm glad that I experienced. It makes me sort of interested to see what the Chinese Room are going to do next. I just feel that it's lacking interaction. I feel that I'm basically playing the cameraman. That's all I'm doing in the story. I am moving a camera. That is all I'm doing here. I'm not interacting. This story can happen. I could go off to the bathroom and come back, and this story would still be happening. It doesn't need me to be there. It's it just does its own thing. But Kim,
I played a lot of walking simulators. I am in the same spot as you. I will definitely give it a 4 out of 5. My main thing was that the walking pace was a little slow, but I do have my little things that I think that the side characters weren't done so well to make them as engaging as they should. There was some, but the story is done really well. The main characters and just the events and making them emotional and all those things. I gotta say, I have to admit, I got tears in my eyes once in a while. The environment was great. Like the suspense was built really well, but I do think there's the idea of Everybody's Gone to the Rapture is such a great one, but there are some little things, little tidbits that could be better, I guess. And the only thing is that, like you said, the Chinese Room has DRS under its belt, and it's been a game that I've actually wanted to play it even before I knew about Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. Sad enough is that I haven't played it yet. But it's definitely something I'm thinking about, especially since I've seen the quality of games that they're able to put out. So it's definitely something that I want to look forward to is, keep the Chinese Room on our radar and maybe see if we can explore another game and eventually see how they build as a indie game studio.
Oh, definitely. I think along with Don't Nod, who obviously did Life is Strange, it's interesting that we're getting these very well-developed stories from these independent developers, and it makes me excited when we see the latest project from Don't Nod, or we see, obviously, what the Chinese Room in this case have presenting, because it's so much different than what you'd expect when you hit indie title. That these are sort of very unique experiences, and it's kind of, in a way, it's kind of matching what indie cinema is. That we're getting something perhaps on a smaller scale, but it's just as engrossing as a AAA title, and it's not afraid to give us something different. And to that, it's very commendable, the fact that we have this game and it's done the way it is. I just perhaps would like a little more interaction for me to see it as a game rather than sort of just...
I mean, I think at this point it's really safe to say that there is a big debate as to... there is a really good debate to have, maybe even an episode worth of it, that we can talk about. Maybe gets a guest that worked on a walking simulator or something, and like an actual walking simulator, and talk about the definition of walking simulators, even to other gamers. What is this? Build on what we were discussing in our last interview. And I think that if anybody listening to this is interested, drop us an email or drop us a comment, and we definitely love to have someone come on the show and talk about this. It's a fascinating topic, I find. Just the subgenre of walking simulators right now, and the amount that is in the indie gaming studios that are building it. I think that there's really a space to discuss about what is the limits of a walking simulator and what defines it for other people.
So that's Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, a solid 4 out of 5 for myself here. So it is available now both on Steam as well as through the PlayStation Network, so you can go and pick that up now. And certainly let us know in the comments section what you thought for the game below. Let us know your experiences of Everybody's Gone to the Rapture.
Yeah, and so this wraps up this episode. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. We'd love to hear your feedback and any recommendations you have for any future episodes or games that you'd like us to play. Head over to our home base, thatmomentin.com, to read more gaming reviews. To get gaming news and releases every single day, follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook at Game Warp Podcast. You can also hang out with us on our Twitch channel, where we stream, which is twitch.tv/Game Warp Podcast. Right now, our schedule has been kind of solidified, and it is Sunday morning Blood Bowl with Elwood. And mine is not so solid, and it would be either the Friday evenings or Saturday afternoons Eastern Standard Time, but you should check out our Facebook and Twitter for any updates. I usually update on there. Finally, to catch our episode on the go, you can find us on iTunes and Podomatic. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next show.